There are moments when everything seems suspended. No backward movement, no forward movement. A different silence fills the air, as if something were about to happen, but it is still nameless, formless. And in this interval between the old and the new, the universe observes. It does not press, it does not force. It simply waits for your permission to move what needs to be moved. This is the space between what was and what could be. A subtle, almost imperceptible space where internal decisions build invisible futures. Life does not change through shouting, but through silent decisions. And perhaps at this very moment, something inside you has already decided to change. Have you ever wondered why some cycles take so long to end? Or why certain situations repeat themselves, even after so many attempts to overcome them? The answer is not in what happens outside. It is in the frequency maintained within. Because reality does not respond to declared desire, but to sustained vibration. That is why many changes do not happen with effort, but with release. When you let go of what no longer makes sense, space is created. And where there is space, there is flow. The universe does not resist clarity. It moves with it. When you stop fighting your feelings, denying the signs, and start aligning yourself with your truth, it responds. Not always quickly, but always accurately. There is hidden wisdom in the timing of things. When nothing happens, it is because everything is being prepared. And when it finally happens, it is because you are ready to sustain what you have asked for. This readiness has nothing to do with physical strength or rational intelligence. It has to do with presence, with a willingness to look at what needs to be transformed, even if it hurts, with the courage to admit that the time has come to stop running away. Because the truth is this: you cannot heal what you hide, and you cannot transform what is still protected by fear. If there is something you feel you need to leave behind, a pattern, a memory, an old pain, then maybe this is the time to acknowledge it. Acknowledge it not as someone who blames themselves, but as someone who frees themselves. There is no more room to carry what weakens you. What once served as protection has now become a prison, and what has already fulfilled its role, if insisted upon, becomes a burden. There is a right time to honor the past, and a right time to let it go. And if that time has come for you, then welcome this moment with respect, with integrity, with reverence, because the process of liberation is, above all, sacred. It begins when you stop denying your own pain, when you stop thinking you need to be okay all the time, when you understand that there is no evolution without going through shadows. Discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that something is being forcibly removed from your field. And the more resistance there is, the more difficult this process will be. But if there is acceptance, the transition can be smooth. It is not necessary to suffer in order to grow, but it is necessary to be willing to let go of what prevents growth. And that requires something that many avoid: silence. In silence, everything is revealed. Masks fall, excuses disappear, the truth appears, and therein lies the key. The truth is not an absolute idea. It is a frequency, a vibrational state in which you feel, with your whole body, that you are aligned with something greater, something that cannot be named, but that strengthens you. And this alignment, once activated, begins to reorganize your entire life. You begin to notice subtle changes. A different thought when you wake up. A feeling of lightness for no reason. Emotional relief after years of heaviness. These are small signs, but they speak volumes. They announce that the field has begun to respond to your new decision. Because yes, internal decisions change external fields. And every change begins with a choice. Right now, you can choose to hold on to the pain, or you can choose to let it dissolve. You can choose to keep waiting for everything to change, or you can decide to be the starting point for change. Nothing that is true requires effort to remain. What requires constant struggle is probably misaligned. And the more you insist on holding on to what vibrates out of sync, the further away you get from what is waiting for you. Because yes, there is something waiting for you. A new phase, a new state, a new peace. But to access it, you need to make room. Internally, emotionally, vibrationally. And it starts with a simple gesture, recognizing that the time has come. Time to stop fighting the flow. Time to let go of control. Time to accept that you no longer need to hold on to what no longer serves you. If this recognition is already pulsing within you, then it's done. The first step has been taken, and the universe has already begun to respond. In this new cycle, it will not be effort that brings results. It will be alignment, trust, the willingness to act with presence and lightness. You don't need to run. You just need to walk with clarity. Everything that is yours is already approaching, perhaps slowly, but steadily. And when it arrives, you will recognize it. Not because it is perfect, but because it is familiar. Not because it shines, but because it resonates. Not because it impresses you, but because it reminds you of who you really are. That is the true sign of what is meant for you. It does not cause you anxiety. It brings you back to peace. And if at this moment you feel something inside you reorganizing, then take a deep breath and declare silently, I release what limits me. I open myself to the new. I receive with gratitude. These words are not just phrases. They are energetic commands. They are codes that the field around you understands. They are keys that unlock invisible doors, and you're ready to walk through. There comes a moment when it is no longer possible to ignore what you feel, when distractions no longer numb you, when the noise of the world no longer silences what pulsates inside. That is the moment when the soul calls out most strongly. And those who hear that call never walk the same way again. You can try to go on as before. You can pretend you haven't noticed the subtle shift. You can keep repeating routines, speeches, and patterns. But something inside you already knows the old way no longer works. What once sustained you now limits you. What once seemed safe now holds you back. And this discomfort is not failure. It is a sign of awakening. Awakening is not about knowing everything. It is about feeling different. It is when what was once enough begins to seem small. When the mind tries to justify, but the heart no longer agrees. It is at this point that life invites you to something greater. And this expansion, even if scary at first, is your true direction. Maybe you're still between two worlds. Part of you wants to move forward. Another part fears losing control. That's normal. The transition between who you were and who you're becoming takes courage. It requires you to look with compassion at what needs to be left behind, not with rejection, but with gratitude. The old self also tried. It also protected. It also resisted. But now it has served its purpose. And it is time to allow a new self to take over. A more present self. A more authentic self. A self more aligned with the life you want to live. In this process, there is a force that sustains you even when you feel weak. There is a silent presence that surrounds you even when everything seems uncertain. This presence is the divine intelligence that governs all cycles, and it is already working in your favor. But for you to perceive it, a gesture is necessary. Slow down. Haste drives away clarity. Anxiety distorts perception. The need to have all the answers blocks the natural flow of wisdom. So stop, breathe, feel. What do you really need right now? What is your body trying to tell you? What truth have you been avoiding? These questions do not require immediate answers. They need to be listened to, genuine listening. Listening without judgment, because it is in listening that the path reveals itself. You're not lost. You're being repositioned. And this repositioning requires trust. It requires you to keep walking even without knowing exactly where you're going. Because what matters is not the destination, but the internal state with which you walk the path. When the internal state changes, everything changes. Reality is not static. It is a reflection, a mirror that reflects what you vibrate. And if the vibration changes, the reflection also changes. That is why, before transforming what is outside, you need to align what is inside. Because every manifestation begins with frequency. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you vibrate. And to change that vibration, you need to observe what you are feeding yourself on a daily basis. What thoughts do you repeat? What emotions do you tolerate in silence? Who do you choose to spend time with? What do you consume with your eyes, ears, and words? All of this builds your field, and your field builds your reality. The good news is that from the moment you decide to change, the field begins to respond. Even if slowly, even if imperceptibly, the important thing is that it responds. Always. But change must be honest. It cannot be done to please, to prove something, or to run away from yourself. It must come from within. It must be true. And true change begins with acceptance. Accept what was. Accept who you were. Accept what still hurts. Healing does not happen by denying pain. It happens by embracing pain, by allowing it to express itself, to move, to dissolve. So don't repress what you feel. Don't pretend lightness where there is weight. Spiritual evolution does not require perfection. It requires sincerity. Being spiritual is not about always feeling good. It is about always being aware. And that awareness is what truly transforms us. It allows you to see clearly what needs to be adjusted. It shows you where you are sabotaging yourself. It invites you to choose differently, even when it is difficult. And little by little, it rebuilds your way of being. In this new way, there is no room for excess, nor for disguises. There is presence. There is purpose. There is truth. You begin to value the simple things, to respect your own limits, to remain silent instead of reacting, to observe instead of judging, to trust instead of controlling. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, a training of the soul. And like all training, it requires practice, consistency, and compassion. You will fall, but you'll also get up. You will make mistakes, but you will learn. You will feel lost, but you will find yourself again. The journey does not require you to know everything, only that you are willing. And if you're reading this far, it is because you are. Now it is time to take your place. The place of those who not only desire change, but are committed to it. This commitment begins with small acts. A silent forgiveness you offer without receiving an apology. An old habit you let go of, even though you miss it. Self-care you prioritize, even when you have little time. A firm no, even when you're trembling inside. These acts are invisible to the world, but they are giant in the field. They change everything. They create new paths. They activate new connections. They release previously held energy. And little by little, they build a new thing you've been looking for. Because the new doesn't come ready-made. It needs space. And that space opens up with choice. The choice of those who understand that living consciously is easier than living on the run. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be available. The universe does not demand perfection. It responds to truth. So declare now, internally or out loud, I choose to take a stand. I choose to live with truth. I choose to sustain peace. These words are not promises. They are a stance. And stance is the root of the reality that will blossom from now on. Change will not come from outside. It is already being born within you. There comes a point when it is no longer about waiting, nor is it about seeking outside. It is about sustaining within. Because after so much walking, so much understanding, so much cleaning, you realize what transforms is not what you achieve, but the state in which you live. You have gone through pain, renunciations, cycles of silence, and yet you are still here, with a more attentive heart, a more awakened consciousness, and a more serene soul. This is evolution, not the end of problems, but the presence in the face of them. Not control over life, but mastery over your own vibration. Now you understand that nothing changes if the frequency does not change, and that what you sustain energetically is what shapes your reality. Words are just the surface. Actions, rituals, practices, all important, but without the internal state, they are just attempts. What moves the field is coherence. That is why many try to manifest and fail, because they still vibrate fear while asking for peace. They still vibrate lack while desiring abundance. They still vibrate guilt while praying for liberation. But you have already crossed that portal. You have already passed through the initial layers. You have already understood that for the new to be established, the old must be deactivated, not with anger, but with respect. Every part of your story has played a role. Every person who has passed through, every mistake made, every illusion nurtured. Everything has been a stepping stone. Nothing has been lost. Everything has brought you to this point. And now, with this new awareness, you access the true turning point. Constancy. Because everyone starts. But sustaining, that's what transforms. Sustaining faith even when logic says no. Sustaining calm even when everything seems to be falling apart. Sustaining the choice for light even when the shadows scream. This vibrational steadfastness is what differentiates a loose intention from a real manifestation. And you're already at that frequency. You may not yet see results in all areas, but they will come because the energy is already circulating. The field has already been activated, and reality inevitably responds to the field. The only thing that can interrupt this process now is doubt. Doubt is the brake on manifestation. It is what disrupts the field, cancels codes, and lowers the frequency. And doubt is born of impatience. So remember, spiritual time does not follow clock time. It responds to vibrational readiness, to the real space available to receive, to the emotional maturity that allows you to sustain what you ask for. And you are ready to live with more presence, ready to create with more truth, ready to relate with more lightness, ready to prosper with more awareness. But all starts within. It's not about doing more. It's about being more. Be more compassionate with yourself. Be more honest in your choices. Be more loving with your processes. Be more truthful in your own frequency. And when this being becomes natural, the doing happens with fluidity, and the having as a consequence. Life reorganizes itself effortlessly. The right people show up, paths open up, ideas flow, and everything starts to fall into place. This is not fantasy. This is vibrational physics. When the field changes, the world changes, because the world is just a mirror of what you hold inside. Now is the time to choose what you want to hold from here on out. Hold resentment or liberation. Hold haste or confidence. Hold attachment or fluidity. Hold fear or presence. These choices are daily, and every little decision reinforces or alters your vibration. This is how you build a new reality, with conscious decisions sustained frequently. And if you ever slip, forget, or lose your way for a moment, it's okay. Awareness allows you to return. Presence allows you to start over. And compassion allows everything to be a learning experience. You don't have to be perfect. You need to be sincere. Sincerity with your own journey is what keeps the field clear. It protects your vibration. It keeps self-deception away. It removes excessive demands. And it reminds you every day that you are on the path, even when you stumble. Because stumbling is part of it, but continuing is a choice. And that choice is yours. You can choose to feed old stories or write a new one. You can repeat the same reactions or create new responses. You can keep your old identity or open up to the person who is being born now. Because yes, there is a new you emerging, a more complete you, more aware, more connected, lighter, and it is already expressing itself in the way you think, in the way you feel, in your choices, in your posture, in your silences. This new you is a reflection of the healing that has already begun. And if there is something that still hurts, that still weighs heavily, that still seems stagnant, don't see it as a setback. See it as an adjustment, because the field is intelligent. It shows what still needs to be seen. It brings to light what is ready to be released. Everything that is appearing now has a purpose. If it is pain, it is to be embraced. If it is fear, it is to be overcome. If it is confusion, it is to be clarified. Nothing comes by chance. Everything comes as an answer. And the more you listen, the more the field aligns. This is the true power, listening with presence, acting with intention, feeling deeply, vibrating with coherence. In this state, you become a channel of healing, of transformation, of expansion, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Your frequency touches environments. Your silence heals spaces. Your posture inspires change. Your existence activates realities. You're not here just to solve your own life. You're here to be a bridge, to remind others of what is possible, to carry an energy that opens paths, even without saying a word. And all of this happens naturally when you align with your essence. Because your essence is abundant, it is wise, it is compassionate, it is light. When you vibrate from this place, everything transforms. And the most beautiful thing is that this transformation is silent. It doesn't need a stage, nor does it need recognition, because what is true stands on its own. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to be true to your vibration. The vibration takes care of the rest. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and say silently, I uphold my truth. I choose alignment. I allow the best to come. This statement seals everything that has been activated so far. It communicates to the field that you are ready, not just to receive, but to maintain. Because receiving is easy. Sustaining is what reveals who you are, and you're already ready to live with purpose, to manifest with clarity, to love with awareness, to transform with presence. Nothing is missing. Everything is already there, inside. Now, the path is to continue, one step at a time, one yes per day, one alignment at a time. And little by little, life will mold itself to the new frequency you have chosen to inhabit.